If you have a Shopware 6 shop, you should definitely take a look at the settings for your shopping cart. Now you're probably going to ask, okay, there are settings for that. Yes, you can adjust a lot of things there, even without extensions or anything, right, in the Shopware 6 standard. And for this, we'll go to the settings in the administration, because it's often something that people actually overlook or forget a bit when setting up the shop, but it could be quite interesting. Accordingly, we'll now go to the shopping cart settings under the general settings. Very important first, we can define at the top which sales channel this should apply to. Normally you have several here, but we can also just say directly, okay, this applies to all of them now. And in the case of our video, we'll do it exactly like that so we don't cause any major confusion. We now have the settings directly for the shopping cart here. For example, how many products or quantities are allowed to be present at all. We have 101 in here now. But I could also say, no, you definitely can't have more than 99 per product in the cart. Yes, depending on the individual case. There are things that make more sense. There are things that make less sense. If I sell very, very expensive products, for example, the quantities are usually not that extremely high. Accordingly, I could then go below that if I say, for example, okay, yes, for whatever reason, I want to have it higher because I sell very high quantities, for example, because I sell screws, then I could also turn it up here. Of course, it also depends on whether I sell the product in packages and so on, right? The point is to just first set the quantity that you then also have in the drop down. Directly below that, we can then say whether the shipping time should be displayed in the shopping cart. By default, it's always on, and I'd also recommend showing it to the customer so there's no confusion. Often, if you hide it, you might get an email from a customer asking about it again. So just turn it on and also maintain the times in the products. That usually saves you as a shop operator a bit of work. Then we have here whether the off-canvas cart, which is the menu that pops up on the side, should be activated or opened when a product is added to the cart. I would do that. In fact, as a customer, I think the flow is cooler if I add something to the cart and can then pay directly. Usually, you don't necessarily want to browse through the shop extensively, but want to buy it directly, and then it can make sense. And it doesn't stop the customer from continuing to browse anyway, right? So it's actually quite a nice feature. Of course, you can also deactivate it. I think it's always a bit of a matter of taste. I would activate it. Then we can also set whether refunds are approved, whether the customer can basically return their items or cancel them, more or less. The order, exactly. And right below that, so I have it turned off in this case, but you can turn it on. That's up to you, of course. And your business flow, however you prefer it. Right below that, we have the time in minutes that the customer has to finalize a transaction. For example, if the customer pays with PayPal and isn't done in 10 minutes, should they be kicked out so the product is released again for another customer who might order because we have a clearance sale, for example, and well, I don't know, there aren't enough products available so that they don't block it for too long. Then right below that we have the maximum number of products that can be added per I think minute per minute via API. I don't have anything in there now, so the maximum is more or less infinite as far as technically possible. But you could also say, hey, I don't know, no more than 10, 100, 1,000 should go through per minute, depending on whether you work with that at all. If not, then it doesn't matter. Then we have here again the option to show or hide the subtotal. Right below that, we can also say, hey, do we want the tax column to be displayed instead of the individual unit price? There too, it's again a bit of a matter of taste. I would probably always show the tax column instead of the individual unit prices. It's usually always a bit nicer and also more common. Right below that, we then have a few options for the checkout. For example, the comment field. Please only turn that on if you actually read your customers' comments. Then you definitely have to pay a bit of attention. Sometimes they give you a bit more information, which could potentially be interesting for this order. For example, something like, hey, please make sure that the product is wrapped extra carefully because, well, I don't know, the delivery guy always throws them somewhere very carelessly. Then definitely pay attention to these comment fields and go through them regularly if activated. Then we have down here the possibility to say guest customers are automatically logged out as soon as they have placed the order. That can make sense. I usually leave it on, I'd also just recommend it, but you can, of course, change it. Again, an individual decision here. And last but not least, we still have the wish list, which we can, of course, also activate or deactivate as we please. Then customers can basically also put things on their own wish list to maybe order them at some point. When we're done with everything, we can save the whole thing at the top. We can now also do this for other sales channels and so on. As I said, I usually always do it for all of them. In this case, you can choose how you want to do it. I hope I was able to help you with this video and give you a better understanding of the shopping cart settings. You can also find an entry about this in our documentation, so feel free to check the video description. On that note, take care and bye.